When I found out about what ADHD was, I was really glad there was an explanation because I couldn't believe someone could live that way.
Sara Pascoe.
Steen Raskopoulos.
Two renowned comedians.
Pulling back the curtains on ADHD in their life.
But also that's, I think one of the biggest things I struggle with is choice. Start running at 8 o'clock and it's 7:50, like, cool, I'll go get a coffee. And as soon as it's like 8:01, you've missed it. Okay, I'll just chill to 8:30 and then 8:34 comes, I'll start at definitely 9. And then before you know it, you're watching The Price is Right at 6 o'clock.
And no wonder you hate yourself. Yeah.
Can we ask you some questions?
Yes.
First question. I find it difficult finishing a task or a project.
1.
Next question. Find it difficult to sit still and often fidget or squirm.
Yeah, I wiggle.
I would describe myself as being on the go and feel compelled to do things as if I'm driven by a motor.
Yeah, that's...
Last one. I often miss what is being said to me in conversations. Sarah, thanks for taking our ADHD test. I have the results. You have scored... This episode is dedicated to anyone who hates big spoons. They really are the devil's shovel. I know you've probably heard this a million times on other podcasts, but following or subscribing really helps the show. And the more followers we get, the more likely it is that I'm able to book new, exciting, and insightful guests for the show. So, if you subscribe, I will continue to keep to my word and promise to never let this podcast be sponsored by Huel. Sarah, Steen,
Hello.
thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
So let's clarify the dynamics first. Who's got ADHD, or do you both have it?
I would say diagnosed 1 out of 2, but I believe we both have it.
Yeah, I am an ADHD refuser, not an ADHD denier. I definitely believe some people have ADHD. My best friend has been diagnosed with ADHD. Husband, as you can see, and it definitely is. I'm not someone who's minimising it and the effect that it has on people's lives. But personally, I think I'm in the squidge of people who maybe have some symptoms. But it's, what was I saying to you yesterday? I think sometimes the world is wrong, not people. Yeah, right, okay. Steen's face.
No,
I think if you live with someone with ADHD and you end up having to do too many of the executive functions, you start to become overwhelmed.
That's exactly what someone with ADHD would say.
What traits do you notice most in Steen? Because you've got a diagnosis.
Yeah.
What traits do you notice most in Steen?
Well, there are things about Steen that I was really glad there was an explanation because I couldn't believe someone could live that way in terms of not being able to see things or do things, and then watching someone have an intention, like watching a spaniel, right? Off I go to do this thing, and then a squirrel and a different thought has occurred. The original thought completely lost forever. Things half done. I was really glad when I found out about what ADHD was, and then when Steen was learning about it himself pre-diagnosis, there was a relief of going, that light bulb moment of so many things make sense.
Yeah, but it's also just going, I'm not like, in terms of calling it out, whether it be like I need to go do something and come back, not done the thing, done something completely different, that also doesn't need to be done.
Yes.
And then coming back downstairs.
Yeah.
And
the
going,
thing that does need to be done, never being done.
Oh, it still isn't done.
Steen has never ever emptied a washing machine.
That
He's
is a
put so
lie.
many washes
That is a lie.
on, so many
That
washes
is a
on,
lie.
but never unprompted. Did you
Unprompted.
put a wash on 6 weeks ago? Because there's a lot of rotting clothes in here.
Yeah, that's true. But it's also a thing of kind of not internally you're so negative before, I guess, the diagnosis. Because I don't think I'm incompetent. I think I'm an idiot. Like, I'm not doing it intentionally kind
Laziness.
of thing. Laziness. Is that too? Like, I'm not lazy, but that kind of might be construed as that as well.
And as a husband-wife dynamic, and it is awful feeling that you're nagging your partner about basic household chores. But when someone has ADHD, they do, in our experience, need some prompting, which means you've got a resentful partner who is either thinking it's quicker if I do it myself, or I have the mental load of remembering the other half of the task. So when we understood it was ADHD,
But it's also, you sometimes go like, I feel bad for nagging. Like, it's not nagging. You're just reminded, like, it's actually a thing to thank you for.
He would say he was grateful, but I hated the sound of my own voice so much, like passive aggressively, like, oh, oh, did you?
Oh, is the washing machine unloaded again, Steen?
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Towels is the other thing. Towels.
Oh, I'm bad on towels.
He uses a towel, drops
Bad on
it.
towels.
It's then invisible to him for the rest of its life.
It's not that, like, you
It
you
just never
start
occurs to
sorting
him.
things in piles. It's like, all right, I hang the towel over here or leave it on the floor. So
Yeah,
I
that's
remember when I
what
get
you do.
changed,
Yeah.
I'll pick it up on the way back down to do it.
And sometimes it would make its way halfway to the bathroom, like he'd started the journey,
Yeah.
and he'd hang it up in the hallway, like that's close enough.
Or like, because we got our bedrooms upstairs, like I throw the towel downstairs, like cool. So when
This
I
is
walk
feeling
downstairs,
like couples therapy. This is feeling like couples therapy.
also we've already forgotten probably the first question, which
No, we haven't, which was, you've been diagnosed.
Yes.
I interrupt people a lot when they're talking, which
Oh,
I know
what does
is
that sound like?
which I know is a big ADHD symptom, but it's also just sometimes you've not got a very nice personality.
You put the dishwasher on and then you've got distracted by a side quest.
Thank you so much. I want to go gather the smaller experience points. I want to go talk to the
The
lesser.
wardrobe is a perfectly valid place for that
Thank
towel.
you.
And the internet makes it hard because there's things where you go, oh, I need to book that thing, I need to answer that email, I need and then there's a whole other world of half fulfilled tasks.
But also, that's, I think, one of the biggest things I struggle with is choice. Like when, especially if to buy either like groceries or things for the house, if there's like an option, especially if you shop on like Amazon or a thing.
Blackout blinds, having children is, there's lots of reasons it's annoying, but it gives you lots and lots of executive functions to me, isn't that right? And it gives you hundreds of them all of the time, and you have to do it. You have to be the grown-up, and it's not good for ADHD.
No.
It's overwhelming, even for people like me who don't have ADHD.
With the awareness of ADHD you have now, can you look back in your early days of dating and see moments of impulsivity from Steen?
That's an interesting question. Actually, not so much impulsivity, because lots of people in our profession, I think it's such a common trait in people in our profession, because it's a very immature lifestyle, working at night, drinking after work. So getting to know someone, I didn't pick up on that, but it's the low self-esteem caused by constantly wanting to do things and not getting them done. And that's the thing, is thinking, like, why is this really beautiful, talented person got such low self-esteem? And that's what the diagnosis really helped with. And that's why I look back on your life and go, oh gosh, if you had found out at school, like lots of people our age, you find out later. Did you find out later as well?
Yeah, I was 34.
Yeah.
I found, which was
Right.
about a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so if you can't help but think, what difference would it have made if someone had known this at 12, 13, 14, if you'd had support in those really formative years that you build the
for
rest
sure.
of your adult life on.
It was always like deadlines for me in school. If I had like a deadline or like structure, or that's where I kind of thrived a bit. But especially if it was like an assessment or an essay that needed to be handed in. I'm like, cool, I've got 2 weeks to go. Oh, I've got a week to go. Oh, and I always used to do my essays on literally the night before. And it still happens now with my writing and my live shows kind of thing. It's like, oh, the festival's coming. Oh, I'll get there. And then the night before, I'm like, oh, what's the best way to finish this ending? Blah, 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 blah. And it's still a thing that I struggle with. And now when I finished editing my new show now, I had to go into a hotel room in Sydney and like literally just be away from distraction, because it's so easy to wake up like, cool, I'm going to start writing at 8 o'clock. And it's 7:50, like, cool, I'll go get a coffee. And as soon as it's like 8:01, you've missed it. Okay, I'll just chill to 8:30, and then 8:34 comes, I'll start at definitely 9. And then before you know it, you're watching The Price is Right at 6 o'clock.
And no wonder you hate yourself. when you're watching The Price is Right, going, I'm a piece of shit.
There's reruns as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doing stuff at last minute is very common within the ADHD community. You need that last minute stress to get you over that procrastination hump.
Yeah.
Do you see that in Sarah at all?
I don't know.
Also, the other thing is that anything that's worked once, in human psychology, it gets reinforced. So lots of people have left things to the last minute, thought, all the balls were going to tumble down. And actually, you get away with it. The essay gets in, you get a B+. You do live your life thinking, what would have happened if I'd spent the 2 weeks on it? But I think that's what's difficult, is the people who have managed to cope in that, I mean, that stressful cycle.
But it's also like when I started therapy again with someone who like specializes in ADHD, and her reasoning behind it was I get a much bigger dopamine hit of leaving everything to last second and then getting it done. It's if like, you know, the big sprint to the finish line, getting that kind of
Whereas
success.
I get dopamine from starting lists, organisation, working a bit every day.
You love a pad and a diary. You've got like 4 diaries.
That's it, but that's the thing. All through school and everything, I did lots of writing by hand, writing diaries. It became my job. So I don't, and I genuinely enjoy doing a little bit of my work every day, not leaving it all to the last minute.
No, you're so organised and planned.
Yeah.
And even if you go back to every like TV show or like live touring show kind of thing, there's always like a folder or a book that is
I
like
have hard
handwritten
copies
stuff,
of everything.
and prints out of that in the thing.
Yeah.
And then you
Because I have to externalise it. But what I'm trying to say is I do have a process, but I've also got a process where I know the longer I've spent on it, the better it will be.
Yeah.
And I can't bear the feeling of I've only got a short amount of time to do something. And obviously that does sometimes happen.
But
I
also
can't
you
bear
spin
it.
so many plates and like you do it
Yes.
so well, but also that's a reinforcement
Yeah.
so that you think you can take it all on.
But when I talk, I think because of my job, which is lots and lots of talking without really having planned, I think my brain looks scattier than it actually is. So I have had, and this is probably where I'm slightly defensive about diagnosing, is that I've had members of the public diagnose me with all kinds of different things, because they do that if you're in the public eye. People get in contact and go, oh, by the way, did you know?
I had one after I did Stay,
Yeah.
and like because I do like a lot of characters in my show kind of stuff, and someone, hey, just want to let you know, like you've got schizophrenia. I'm like, I'm just playing different characters like, in the show kind of thing.
And this woman was like, no, but question why you want to.
Question why you want to. And it's like, okay, thank you so much for that. But
I had
think I'm okay.
a woman after a book signing who said, your brain goes very fast and then it slows down. and she was trying to say that I was bipolar. And also sometimes the people diagnosing you don't really know very much. It's very dangerous. And I know we do it we do it very lazily now. I mean, we all know a little bit about psychology, and we can say, oh, that person's a megalomaniac.
But also, like, if you enjoyed the show, it's like, hey, great show. Like, we'll come again. You don't have to be like, hey, your diagnosis
I just think people should be very, very careful. Not because there's anything negative, but because if someone is then paranoid about how they express themselves or what they're giving away about themselves, I just think that. So to answer your question.
which was addressed to me.
Which was addressed to you. No, so yes, Sarah doesn't leave things to the last minute.
Steen, you know Sarah better than any of these people in the audience, better than that lady at the book signing.
Yeah.
What do you think? Do you think she's got ADHD?
I think she's got. It's hard because I think she's so well organised and prepared, but obviously that's along the lines as well. I don't know. I think yes, and that's only because in terms of since my diagnosis, maybe just a bit beforehand, there's more information that the computers are listening, and obviously I'm getting more pop-ups and stuff like that.
We're learning about
that's Sarah,
it,
that's
yes.
That's Sarah. But obviously,
but it's also everyone we know.
Yeah.
So this is the problem for us, and maybe for some of your listeners. It's like we've all got ADHD, or no one's got ADHD, because we don't know anyone who wouldn't be covered by a lot. And Carrie, my best friend, our friend, she says, well, that's because people with ADHD tend to socialise together, marry each other, have ADHD children, because it's genetic. So you go, no, but my mum's like this and my dad's like this, and my entire extended family are coping with very similar symptoms. So because it seems so normal, the idea that it isn't how everyone in the world is working is strange, isn't it? So, but it is. So where, I know this is your question, but where we have considered myself being ADHD is a lot of the things to do with having children. So lots of people experience an alleviation of ADHD in pregnancy because of high estrogen. So they find that it's a lot, their thoughts are a lot clearer and that they're a lot more focused. And then some of the things that I found difficult, I found breastfeeding really hard, really bloody boring. And apparently that can be an ADHD symptom because breastfeeding takes ages and you're just sitting there waiting for a baby to stop eating. And so you can't do all the things that you would normally do in terms of busyness, distracting yourself, 3 things going on at once. And I started to struggle with things like eating. I don't want to have to do something else when I'm eating. I want to just eat. And so there have been things that I've then researched and it'll come up like, oh, this is common with people with ADHD. So there are lots of things. There are lots of things, and I do talk over people all the time. And when I'm not talking, it's a funny joke. When I'm not talking, I am telling myself in my head, "That's good. Listen, wait to talk."
Are you doing it now?
No.
Okay.
Are there any other traits, Steen, that you notice in Sarah that might suggest she has ADHD from your point of view?
Oh, I think like the biggest ones would be talking. Or like, but just like you're excited, but I guess that is part of it. I don't think so, but they're not like negative things, I would say. And it's also like I've known you that way from the beginning as well. So it's not as if suddenly you're acting differently now. I'm like, oh, I've noticed this kind of thing.
But this is where I think everyone, ADHD or not, where everyone needs to, I guess, forgive themselves and accept that it's not them are wrong. We are being asked to do too much while being bombarded with things that are very unnatural for our brains and our emotions. We don't have any sort of peace and quiet. People have to literally like go to classes to like lie down on the floor and meditate. We are ingesting all of the time and then swirling it around. So of course we feel overwhelmed. And I think that's where, ADHD or not, we're all juggling too much, and we think it's this is where the root of all this ADHD goes back to. The first definition I heard of it was someone, and they were talking about their dad, and they said it's failure to achieve potential, and that's my problem with it. So I think everything is so success driven and potential driven, which has got nothing to do with contentedness, happiness, feeling fulfilled. That it's very externalized, and I hate that that's why people are getting diagnosed with ADHD, is to explain that's why you haven't got this, that, and the other. And it's like sometimes maybe we don't all want those things, need those things. That's what's overwhelming, I think. Sometimes if you're really confused and it's too much, maybe you don't need to know about it. Yeah.
I'd say also just buying heaps of Peppa Pig stuff for our kid. We don't need. It's just like an impulse. I'll do the grocery shopping. Did you do it? No, but I got Peppa Pig pool.
So this is the thing about dopamine, even if you don't have ADHD. If you can buy a second-hand thing for £4 and it can just come to your house, why wouldn't you?
Well.
When you got your diagnosis, Steen, did you feel any benefits to knowing?
It was a weird way. Like, I think yes, because I think to be honest, the first thing I did was just stop feeling so negative towards myself and like a little like less self-hatred, I guess. And I think that helped. I think also just kind of explained a few things, and the more you kind of I read stuff and researched stuff, and as I was saying before, like leaving essays to last minute or leaving shows, like everything, I just like was a pattern. It was like, oh no, I wasn't doing it on purpose. Like there was something happening chemically with myself, kind of thing. So I think out of everything, that's been the nicest thing, just to be a bit less angry and cross at myself, kind of thing. I've just kind of alleviated a bit of pressure. There's still obviously all different emotions towards that, but I have felt, I think, a bit more kinder to myself, which has been important, especially like in a relationship and being a dad as well. And that was a big thing, going back to therapy and getting the diagnosis, because I just want to be the best dad I can be and best partner I can be. And that comes with a bit of self-love, I think.
Also, Steen had been sort of misdiagnosed with depression, which is very common with people with ADHD. And so to have a diagnosis that was closer to what you were struggling with rather than one that didn't quite feel right. And also a diagnosis where, they're very keen to give you medicine that might not be, if it's not the right thing for you, then that's really, dangerous. Yeah.
Did you go through a grieving process after you got your diagnosis? Sort of looking back into your past and thinking things could have been different?
Yeah, and I think that's why I started doing therapy again. I say therapy again. I just went to someone who has a bit more kind of expertise, I'd say, in it. And I think that's what this journey's been about in terms of like, rediscovering how I was and how I am now, but also just looking back at the younger self and being much more kinder to that boy kind of thing. Because even when I was like, my earliest memory of the first time I ever heard ADHD was someone telling my mum and my dad, "Oh, he's got ADHD."
About you?
Yeah. And the thing was, I was just super energetic, sport. Like I just had too much energy kind of thing. And I still remember there was a drink called Lift, which I think the Coca-Cola company made. I don't think they make it anymore, but it was like a lemony Coke essentially. And I used to drink that after a sporting game. And I used to be off my tits. And my mum and dad expected something like, "Oh, it's the Lift. You cannot give that boy Lift, that specific drink anyway." And I was never allowed. I could still drink Coke and stuff like that, but for some reason, like it was this magical Lift that just made me go absolutely mental with energy kind of stuff.
Steen's parents both have ADHD. And one of the things that was tricky, and I think for lots of adults who are getting diagnosed, what's really hard is if you have, parents or other adults in your life sort of pushing back, going, no, that's, we're all like that. And because number one, I think they feel like they failed because they didn't catch it. They feel there's some criticism of them that they were supposed to have known, or they just misremember.
But also, I think there's like a stigma towards it that they think like something's wrong.
Yes, absolutely. Rather than an adult trying to understand why they work a certain way. We were walking, Steen's parents were over from Australia, we were walking along, and Steen was saying, well, and they were like, "No, but you were great at school. You were having a great time." And you were saying, "Well, I was often in detention because I
was never in detention.
Okay,
One time I sat in the headmaster's garden when I shouldn't have. The only detention I ever got at school.
But you were trying to explain to them, this happened at school, or that, that's why sport was good for me, because when I was exhausted, I could stay still. Or you were saying, I can't open emails. I see them there. And your parents were both like, no one opens emails. You don't have to open emails.
But it's the thing as well, like, I don't know if you had to do it, like for the tests that I had to do, like Sarah filled out a form, like my mum filled out a form in terms of that kind of stuff. And when the doctor was having the chat, he's like, your mum doesn't think you have like all the answers kind of thing. It's like he goes, speaking to your wife and speaking to this is so very different kind of thing. So I had to justify to him about like the answers my mum gave and things like that, which was hard because she was, I think, writing from a perspective of like, as Sarah said, like he did so well at school and he did all these things and achievements in sport and all this kind of stuff. It's like, yeah, but I also struggled with this and struggled with that and that kind of stuff too.
Yeah. I tried to explain to Steen's mum that he couldn't pick up a towel because his head was off onto the next thing, and she told me that my towels were too dark and I should get red ones so that he can see them.
Sage advice.
It's so funny because my mum and my long-term partner did the two forms, and the psychologist said the exact same thing.
Really?
Yeah,
My mum's answers were very much like, nothing wrong here, completely normal.
Yeah.
My partner's the opposite. And she said she sees that a lot with parents. It's not necessarily like a bias or like it sometimes is, but not always a guilt. Sometimes it's they just don't see that you're different because they see similar in themselves.
Yeah, that's true.
I think it must be really hard for them. We all understand on it because something massive is happening culturally. We're learning about how people work, and they're playing catch up to something, and they go, well, why is everyone having it now? And stuck in their ways. And I do think they hear it as a negative.
100%.
Sarah, do you tend to attract neurodivergent people into your life?
Well, what has happened is that my two best friends from university, so it's a 20-odd, probably longer than that now, years relationship, have both been diagnosed ADHD. And then Steen, my husband, diagnosed with ADHD. And in comedy, there has been a proliferation of diagnoses because when a couple of people got diagnosed, lots of other people realised, understanding more about something, that they also had it. So a lot of people in our social circle and work circle have ADHD. There are some autistic people as well. And then there are some people we know who have both, because you can have, this is fun, ADHD and autism, and then sort of the conditions mask each other a little bit. So again, you get misdiagnosed with depression, bipolar disorder, complex PTSD, lots and lots of things until you get your right diagnosis, which is essentially, in some ways you function very, very organisedly, and in other ways you don't, you're gregarious, all those kind of things, they sort of overlapping things. So there's lots and lots of discussion about it. And then you have this other side, which is that having young children, all parents now, because you know about it, are watching your children going, is that a tantrum? Or do we need to get this assessed? Yeah. And at what point do you help support? Something about Steen and I, and this is actually something that I'm really bad with, I get very excited. So I put out one food for our toddler to eat, and then I think, oh, we've got a pineapple. Oh, we had pasta in the fridge. Do you want toast? And I'll put lots of things in front of him because I'm excited.
Especially if they're eating so well, and then this new thing gets
and
introduced.
we've already made him spaghetti bolognese. Like we should just leave it, and I get really excited about what's for dessert. And you do this as well.
Complimentary thing. Okay, like little spag bol with red wine compliments. It's like,
and I'll be like, a mango. And so I know that I distract our son a lot. And I realise that as a parent, that there are times where you can really help your child be focused and concentrate.
Why do you think you do that?
Well, this is the thing. But as parents, we at least know about these things now. So hopefully that will be the benefit. But then you wouldn't want it to go the other way, where the children grow up and go, they were just, checking all the time.
Or just during any meal, they just request a mango.
Are you actually listening, or are you just waiting to speak?
We've had a couple of guests on who they've recently been made aware of ADHD, and their children are grown up, say in their 20s, and they have tremendous guilt because they look back and they instill a lot of shame in their kids because just the way they were around them, not knowing that the way they were talking to them, the way they were correcting behaviour was probably not the right way to do it for their neurotype. Is that something you have in mind when you're parenting?
I think definitely. And I think I'm half Greek and came from a very very not strict family, but in terms of like dad was like the authority kind of figure kind of thing. So it was very much, we had to leave a restaurant once because we were blowing bubbles in a straw, and it was like we didn't get to eat lunch. It was just like that thing. So even now, if a straw gets put in my cup, like I always just take it out and put it on the side, just like that's what I do. And I think, but that's the only parenting style that I know. So even like mess and stuff like that with the kids, I'm always like, oh, should we? And it's been so nice for Sen. And that's what, she's an amazing mum in that sense, because there's so much freedom and so much play.
Because I was brought up by teenage parents, and we were feral, so we're very different.
No, but generally, like I think our kids have so much freedom and so much more like messy play and things like that.
Yeah,
I still, I say to you, like I'm trying really hard to pull back from it a bit.
There are actually places where you can go that are called messy play, where they have just like big pots.
Mate, and I still go.
He still really struggled with
so
it.
They can turn on and throw paint against like walls. They got plastic sheets
it's all soggy
up
pasta they can put in their mouths.
I'm like, no, they shouldn't do that at messy play. Like, no, don't don't throw paint on the floor.
Hopefully, having children will be great for you, because it will be going through that journey again, undoing your own childhood a bit.
Not too much. So it's not a good one.
We thought we'd do a little fun section, and that's we had a couple of questions that come from a website called Clinical Partners, and it's a very informal, unofficial test, an early stage test to see if you should maybe speak to a professional about whether or not you have ADHD.
Okay.
Can we ask you some questions?
Yes.
And then we can see if you agree with them, Steen.
Okay. First one, yes.
Just got to say, this test will give an indication as to whether you are experiencing the most common symptoms of ADHD, but it cannot replace a full assessment, nor should be used to self-diagnose or decide upon a treatment plan. Okay. First question. And if you could answer on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being you absolutely don't agree, 5 being absolutely all the time.
Okay.
First question. I find it difficult finishing a task or a project.
4.5? 4?
No. So one is that I definitely don't agree.
Yeah, one is
I'm
or
one.
never.
Yeah, you're one.
5 is you do it all the time.
1.
4.
I never not finish a
No,
task.
you're very good at that, to be fair. They call her the closer.
Mrs. Finished, I am.
Next question. I find it difficult to organise myself or a task.
No, 1. But just as an addendum, which I know you don't get in quizzes, the reason that I finish everything is that I do it absolutely instantly, because if I don't think about it for a second, it won't get done. So it's not a pleasant feeling of like, oh, I'm going to do these things and then they get done. It's a panic of
A coping mechanism, maybe.
yeah. That's what they might say.
Yeah, I'd say like 4 again, I think.
4? No,
The second one. This is for me, not for you.
No, it's not. It's for me, and then you have to say if it's true.
Yeah, sorry, this is just for Sarah. And then,
Sorry,
yeah.
You've already got a diagnosis. You're not going to get re-diagnosed by
I
this
was,
next
I was
quiz.
like, these questions sound very similar to ones I've done before.
Steen, and I thought, why is he saying this?
Sorry, I would agree. One, she's
Yeah.
correct. Dr. Raskopoulos, yes.
Next question. If a task or project requires a lot of thought, I will often delay in getting it started.
No, 1 again.
Yeah.
See which way this is going, I think.
Yeah.
I find it difficult to sit still and often fidget or squirm.
You looked at my wiggly foot then, didn't you? You looked at my tapping
My
foot.
eyes just glanced
My
down
dad
there.
used to say I had my engine running. So I do constantly, I wiggle. And I have to,
You
even in
rock
my
to
sleep,
sleep as
I rock to
well.
sleep. But my dad used to say, I've got my engines running.
I thought she used to wear like headphones to sleep because she'd always be like bopping in bed. I'm like, what's going on? And she's like, no,
Yeah.
it's how she rocks herself to sleep.
Yeah. And again, lots of that in my family. Lots of like these people just rocking back and forth.
I would describe myself as being on the go and feel compelled to do things as if I'm driven by a motor.
Yeah,
You just call yourself the engine, mate. So you
I think
can't
that
say
is
no,
true.
no. Yeah.
That's a 5.
5. I find it hard to remain focused in group settings.
No, it's 1 again.
I wouldn't say focus. I think in terms of like interjecting and interrupting kind of thing if people are talking.
That's because I'm focused on what's going on. Me and my 2 friends from university can listen and talk at the same time.
It is something to behold.
So all 3 of us can talk and listen at the same time.
Mate, it's
Our
wild.
boyfriends have never liked it.
It's, yeah.
I make decisions quickly and fail to think through the consequences.
But yeah, that's a 4.
Yeah, you do that.
My mind feels cluttered and it is hard for me to concentrate on one thing at a time.
Yeah, that's a 5.
I'm often irritable with a short fuse.
Yeah, 5.
Oh, who's making a comeback?
It's the last minute comeback.
Here comes the 5s.
The ADHD doctors go, oh, we haven't got a client. And then,
We
oh,
need a couple more points. Here we go. Get over the line.
I have mood swings
5.
sometimes. Last one. I often miss what is being said to me in conversations.
5, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Finish
we've got-
strong.
We started off on all the ones and then we
Yeah.
gravitated towards
So task, this is the thing, yeah, task-wise, stuff gets done, but then I've never ever had anyone help me. Not in I went to the University of Hard Knocks kind of way, but I've always been the only adult in my life.
Yeah. But I think you're so
Yeah.
resilient in that sense too. Like you just, no matter how tired, how many different projects and all that kind of stuff that you have, you always always finish. I've never seen her not finish a task. Compliment.
With the mood swings, is there, I mean, obviously
yeah.
everyone is sensitive to rejection,
Yes.
but are you particularly volatile to rejection?
Yeah, it really, really
Stings you, eh?
scalds. I had a gig on Saturday and I went home and I think one of the other comedians didn't like me. She just sort of told me off for gossiping. And when 3 days later, I'm reflecting on it. She didn't really tell me off, but I felt told off. And went home, got drunk on the train, started smoking. So
But you did.
yeah, because it's so horrible. And actually, that's something
You
about
smoked on the train.
there's something
Bad boy.
about ADHD, which is really great to know. That rejection thing, and also I've cut people out of my life because I've done something wrong, and they know it. Yeah, I do have that one badly. It's awful, isn't it?
It's often described as the worst debilitating trait or part of ADHD specifically.
Yeah.
Like this visceral, really debilitating
Yeah,
physical reaction.
but it's the same
Criti-
part of the brain. I mean, you do feel it as pain. And it's the opposite of, it's the opposite of the lovely dopamine, serotonin, lovely neurotransmitters feelings, is that panicky, you are socially ostracized. In our evolution, feeling like that, if you're not part of the group, is very, very powerful. You want to feel liked and safe, and that does mean that you are safe within a tribe. So I think that heightened sense of it. And again, I don't know anyone who would say, no, I don't mind. I don't mind being told off. Everyone hates it, don't they?
Oh man, confrontation and conflict as well. I hate it.
Yeah.
I hate it so much. Even like people talking to me like in retail shops, it's like, please don't. Please don't. I won't even try it on. I'll just buy it and I'll leave. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Steen can't have a conversation with me on public transport.
That's not true. I don't like having like an argument with you in public.
But he would define almost any conversation as an argument if other people can hear you.
It's true.
Do you think if someone gets a criticism or a rejection, do you think then going on to smoke on a train is a typical reaction?
No, I'm a baby. I'm a baby about it, yeah. No, I don't think it's a typical reaction. But in terms of comics, comedians as a species who are desperate to be liked and then have a very fragile ego, it's very common. We have a job which exacerbates certain personality traits rather than making you grow up and be more balanced. Or even just rather than the world going, hey, you know what, it's not that important. We don't do that.
Oh man, but even I choose acting as a job, and it's just dumb for what, in terms of the amount of rejection you get. But then like the pendulums, when you do book stuff, is like the biggest dopamine hit you can get kind of thing. But it does hit you hard in terms of like, I'm not good enough on this. And it could just literally be like, he's too tall, or like, his shoes are too, but so we don't have
it's brutal.
Yeah.
And within your relationship, this sensitivity to rejection, criticism, does that cause issues?
Oh, I would say it definitely does.
I think so. And it's just more like, because from my perspective, if I don't get something, I get closer stuff, or if we both have bad gigs kind of stuff, you take that feeling, you take that emotion and bring it to the home. And I think that's what's hard to shut that side of stuff off, especially once, and we don't usually like talk at work at home, but once you get home or that kind of feeling stays with you, you're still going on your life, especially like with the boys now too. And you don't want that feeling, but it's stuck.
But more than that, I think sometimes what we have with you, Steen, is that you hear criticism where I don't think I've criticised. So I think we're talking about, so here's an example. So there's something with toddlers where they do naughty things, but you're not supposed to call them naughty. They act out for attention and they have no idea about positive or negative attention. And so our son will throw carrots on the floor, and Steen will pick up the carrots and like look into his eyes and say, we don't throw carrots. We need to stop throwing carrots. It's not good. Mummy was going to cook with those carrots. And then Theodore, of course, now starts throwing carrots more, And then afterwards I'll say, oh, that's what we're not supposed to be doing. I was ignoring him throwing the carrots to hope that he would stop. And he will hear a huge criticism there.
Oh, to be fair, you are shouting all the time.
Whereas I feel like I'm just reminding him that it's really difficult to remember, but we have to keep pointing out to each other when we're falling into the trap of,
But I think with that, like hearing criticism or not hearing or it being addressed as criticism is the same point that I deal with in terms of like options and choice kind of thing before. Whereas like you're scared of making a mistake, if that makes sense. So like in terms of that, it feels like, even if it's just like, hey, this is what, blah, 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 blah. It feels like, oh, I've made a mistake or I've done something wrong. And then that's...
And you go into shut,
and then you shut down and like you feel that emotion so much harder of like, oh, I can't believe I've done that. Whether it's... And also like parenting, there's so many different ways and so many different things to kind of address where you, I don't know, and you can't know everything.
The pressure to be right is more important because you're trying to help your kids. But Steen will the conversation will stop and he won't even realise that he hasn't replied to me. He just completely silent, sort of drifts away. There's this sort of cloud in the house and he will think we've finished a conversation. And so we have to do lots of... I think I might have heard it on your podcast, but a relationship therapist saying you can sort of flag. I'm not criticising you.
It's almost like you pick up like a red towel and like shake it around.
But you can say to someone, this isn't criticism. This is what we're trying to do, or this is what we didn't do there. I'm not criticising you. I'm trying to talk about the stuff. Yeah.
The same relationship therapist described a very similar situation to what you've just said about the neurodivergent partner can just shut down, and it's not always immediately obvious why to the other partner.
Yeah.
They've said something that you didn't mean as a criticism or a rejection, but you've perceived it as one, and therefore you've had that reaction, maybe kept it internalized.
Oh, for sure. And I
You've
think
just gone non-verbal, shut down, completely different as to what you were 30 seconds ago, and the conversation could carry on from yourself. But because you don't realize maybe that you've triggered something within him, then you're almost having two separate conversations at that point.
Or trying to justify it, or trying to dig yourself out of a hole, not realizing that once the physiological thing has happened, this is the state you're in, and you do sort of have to wait for them to come back out. You can't talk your way out of it.
No. And also like the non-verbal thing is like, it's not talk your way out of it. It's more the self-criticism of like, why did I do that? Like I've spoken about it before. Like I've done this, I've done that. And it's just more self-analyzing, not shutting off.
You can't do it out loud, can you?
No, kind of like internally having those conversations, whether I feel like there's too much happening and having to go somewhere a bit quieter to kind of address it. I think I've always done that as a kid as well. Like always just really been quiet within my thoughts to try and figure out why I did something wrong or right kind of thing. We're learning.
Just realised we didn't do the answers to the multiple choice.
We just diagnosed it ourselves and carried on. Yeah.
What did we score, Luke?
It was 25 out of 50, so basically like not consistent with ADHD.
That's what you said.
But I said that's why I think I'm in the squidge, and I think there was a lot of people in the squidge, and I think that's what I think is amazing about a diagnosis for people who want it, need to be easier on themselves, need coping mechanisms, maybe need medication. But there are other people who should be able to sympathise with people with ADHD, and have an overlap, but don't need personally. And maybe it's because, I get my work done. I'm not struggling with certain things. You can have that conversation with yourself and go, all right, I can absolutely empathise with some of the things that people with ADHD are going through, and other people in my life with ADHD, hopefully support them better, while also thinking there's things that I could do to myself environmentally. Like my problems are stress, mood swings, and irritability. But if you looked at my life and my workload, you'd go, well, there's your problem.
Oh, but also,
you're doing that and your kids don't sleep.
Kids, like our kids don't sleep.
So they're environmental. A lot of the changes that should be made to my life are do less. Yeah, get a couple more husbands to help out around the house.
And a couple more trains.
I want to do the washing machine of woes. Every week I ask my Instagram community for their biggest ADHD woes, and it goes in a washing machine because for me, the washing machine represents my biggest woe, which is memory loss. Right. I always forget my washing in the machine, similar to your dishwasher story.
No, but the washing machine is the thing that made me just not understand how I was living with an adult male who, there's 4 stages of washing and he will only do one of them. So if I say, I'm refusing to wash your gym stuff, stop putting it in the washing basket like someone else is going to come along and do it. So he puts a wash on, which then is in the washing machine until I say to him, you need to get the washing out. And then it will be on the dryer for weeks, and he will just use it like a wardrobe.
My family owns a commercial laundry business.
Yeah.
And
he said his washing done for him forever.
But since the age of 11, I used to have to go work at the factory as a kid in school holidays from like 4:30 in the morning till 10. So in terms of going on deliveries, like picking up washings from hospitals, nursing homes,
someone else reminded you to do it.
And also like working on the dryers, like unloading, loading doors. I think I've done enough for my lifetime.
But your mum did your washing for your entire life.
What an accommodation.
And still when you go home,
big pardon?
Your mum does your washing.
It's her love language. That's her love language.
Right,
Okay.
This week in the washing machine of woes, my husband won't get a diagnosis because he doesn't want to know and doesn't really care about labels, but I'm convinced it will help him understand me and make us stronger as a couple. How can I convince him to get assessed or at least see someone?
Well, this is interesting because if she says help to understand me, that's very different to understanding himself. If she is saying, will you understand more about ADHD so that you can help me? That's a very different thing to resist than someone saying, also, you've got it and I know you have and you have to.
Justify
The accusatory nature of that. They're separate asks, and it feels like one might lead into the other, but it also might not. It might not, and she might have to be okay with that. And if he's doing all the work to understand and support her, then hopefully that would be enough. Because that's the main thing, isn't it? Asking a partner to understand you, they shouldn't resist that.
No.
But I can understand why, obviously, I could understand why someone might say, yeah, if I am, I don't need a label for it. And I think that's my definition of the squidge of going, yeah, but I feel fine. I accept myself as this.
I feel like you're going to start like some merch, like the squidge merch.
Do you?
Yeah, 100%.
I'm not adding any more admin into
You
my
love
life.
admin, she loves
Okay,
admin.
do you know how much? Right, design merch, get a designer, get some costings. Where are we getting this made? Go on Dragon's Den.
You're the
Pitch
clothes
my
that you
merch.
I want to do your ADHD item, Steen.
Yes.
I ask all my guests for an item that most represents ADHD
Yeah.
in their life, and yours is to be revealed underneath this cloth.
Yeah.
I'll lift up the cloth. Right, first time we've done that.
Yep.
And I'll let you explain what this is.
Yeah, so you asked me, you sent me an email like, hey, we do this little section if you could. So I said, hey, mate, my ADHD item would be the prescription dated the 8th of the 11th, 2023 for ADHD medication that I haven't gone in to get yet. Thanks, Steen.
I mean, it's the perfect summary, isn't it?
Yep.
And you still haven't got it?
Haven't got it, baby.
Do you think you'd benefit from medication? Do you think you need it, or you're not?
So my biggest thing, and I've been like, so my biggest thing is I was at a low point in 2017 and I was prescribed antidepressants. And I think back then there was so many things happening that kind of justified why I was feeling that way. But I got a misdiagnosed, people like, oh, you got depression, you got anxiety, all this stuff. So they gave me antidepressants.
And you were coerced into taking them.
Very pressurized into like, get this, blah, blah, blah. And then I took these antidepressants for 6 months, and that was always the plan of like, I don't want to, like, I just want to correct this to feel a bit better kind of thing, and then stop it kind of thing. And then after, I just felt something was changing, like chemically in me, like it just in terms of I started to change in personality and as myself, and like obviously side effects were taking place as well. And then the way they withdrew me from them, what I found out now was way more aggressive and shouldn't be done. So in terms of like taking a full tablet, then they said, take a 3/4 for a couple of weeks and a half.
Yeah, they should have weaned you off the dosage.
And they just weaned me off pretty much cold turkey kind of thing, which made it, for a few months, it really upset a lot of my emotions and just didn't center myself, I would say, or corrected. Or I don't think I've ever truly gone back to the state I was before I started taking them, if that makes sense. But I know now ADHD medication and antidepressants are two very different kind of things.
But because you'd had a bad experience with a medication from a doctor who said this will make you feel better and it didn't, the idea of drugs is really terrifying. And so Steen has, I mean, how many times have you Googled and read other people?
The same thing in terms of like doing the shopping, whatever. It's like you read the side effects and well, if I don't have this, it does work. Or... It's
cyclical because on one hand, you go, this could help with some of the things you are struggling with day to day. And then, in a bigger way with your job and the fact that you're a self-employed person who has to organise himself and essentially your career is you.
Yeah.
So the fact that medication might help that is so enticing, but it's a gamble. Because you've had a bad experience with medication before, which means that you always then come back to, I don't know if I should take it or not.
But it's that too as well. Like it really affected my work and my creativity and that kind of stuff. So I was just very reluctant to do something again. As you said, my sister has ADHD and she's on medication, and she said, Steen, like this really helps, blah, 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 blah. I've other people who have the same prescription said, hey, this has helped me, blah, 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 kind of thing. But I'm still just I'm still very reluctant and leery. And maybe I will try it one day, but I've tried to do other things in terms of be consistent with my exercise and routines kind of stuff.
And understanding that you have low dopamine, that the things that can boost it. One of the most amazing things, and I think this is for all people, if you understand dopamine, and you get a little bit...
It's just the smoke on the train.
Yeah, you get a little bit of dopamine by completing tasks. So and obviously it's very, very difficult sometimes, but to motivate yourself to do tiny little tasks, and then the achievement of those tiny ones can sort of get you enough momentum to get to the bigger things.
When they say like make the bed first thing in the morning, things like that.
That really helped, Steen.
Oh, yeah.
And the kitchen's clean every morning now.
But it's what I do, like to go to bed now. It's like I try and clean the kitchen, or at least like do the washing up. Just something that it does feel, I can go to bed now. Like I've completed, like Chris is saying, like I've completed something I can now safely relax and not think, when I wake up, I've got to do all these other things as well as do X, Y, and Z kind of thing. So it has been nice in that sense. And even getting like exercise in a routine, same slot kind of thing, I think helps.
But so come back to the admin of the prescription. it's so huge and it's just sitting there and you still don't know because you don't know what the right answer is.
Yeah. I'm scared of making a mistake. And same with things I've said before. Like I'm weary of making a mistake rather than like, this could be a thing and it could work and it could not and it could fail. And that's how we live our lives creatively. Like we try stuff, we fail, we go again. But
this feels too big.
Yeah, I think this feels too big as a problem at the moment.
Do you take medication?
No, I don't.
No.
I think it's very common for people to be unsure. I've spoken to hundreds of people, and for half of them, it's been a life changer, game changer. For others, it's been really, really negative experience.
Yeah.
I'm quite similar to you by the sounds of it. I'm sort of lucky enough to work in a way that I don't need medication to help me manage my time because I can work when I want, where I want. If I had to work in an office and be sat at a desk 9 till 5 and stare at a screen, I think it might be a different story.
Yeah.
Still undecided, but no, I manage it with exercise, diet, cold showers now, thanks to TJ Power.
Oh, lovely, yeah.
I want to talk about your book.
All right.
Your book's called Weirdo.
Yeah.
Even though it's a novel, are there autobiographical references? And did you feel weird growing up?
I did feel weird growing up, not quite in the same way as the character of Sophie, who is the weirdo in the book Weirdo, but I wrote it straight after having a baby, and it was only really recently, so a couple of years after getting it written, that I was interviewed. So we did a book interview in Brighton, and she said, oh, it's really funny because all of these symptoms or all of these behaviours that Sophie's got, sort of like paranoia, she sort of she has occasionally like sexual, not fantasies, what she do, like visualizations of things, her brain creating stories about people seeing her or not liking her. And she said to me, a lot of that's like postpartum psychosis. And I realised, oh, it's much more. Yeah, that actually, I just had a baby. I was very isolated at home all the time. I wasn't sleeping. And that's probably the similarity that I had a little bit with the character in sort of being very much in my own brain and having lots of things going on in my head that I couldn't express. Or I would worry if I expressed it that you'd be seen as mad.
What's your writing process like?
Well, I don't have any routine, but I do it when I can. So when I had the baby, what I would do is I would get Ubers to gigs because I knew that if the journey was 45 minutes or an hour, I would have 2 hours to write, and I would just write on my laptop in the back. It really has been like fitting it in when you can. I can't believe the empty days I used to have to do work. Because now I had very, very short windows, and essentially I just do it then. And there's no like, do I want to or not? It's like that's the only time you've got, so you get it done.
But also, that's why like amazing you are in terms of like you spin so many plates and you just get things done all the time.
Yeah.
And like of an amazing kind of effort and
I've got this like angry army major in my, what would I say, as my inner voice, essentially going, if you want to do this, it has to be done. If you want to, I really wanted my career. I wanted this career when I was a teenager, and now I sort of have everything I ever wanted. So there's this army major going, you wanted this, now you do it. If you want to have a book out next year, you have to write it today, not tomorrow, today. Yeah. If you want this to be good, it's my voice, but it's shouting. If you want this to be good, you need to spend more work on it. If you just try and work it out on stage, it won't be good enough.
She's like miming, lighting up a cigarette.
No, I'm not. Stop with the smoking thing. It's a sort of pointing going. And then sometimes what the inner voice says, because I have like everyone, it won't be good enough. Doesn't matter if it's good enough, just needs to be done. How will you get a better version unless you have a shit version to start with?
But also kinder to yourself, because I think if people knew how much like you worked and spun so many different things at the same time whilst being an amazing mum and partner kind of thing.
Well, apart from the irritability and the mood swings.
Oh, I wasn't going to bring that up.
But yeah, I feel very, very lucky to have my job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How do you think both being comedians plays its part in your relationship?
Well, I constantly need validation where you don't. I think you have an amazing self-belief.
I get my validation from being on stage.
But it is, like, I think it's why we do it. Like, we just constantly go out and we're looking for that immediate affirmation kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think, especially with, like, my newer stuff, Like in terms of like I've got an Edinburgh show this year. I haven't done Edinburgh since 2018 was my last show. It's such a weird thing to kind of feel. You've got to start back at the bottom, and obviously Sarah's a very successful comic too. So it's just a kind of thing. Hey, so
I love the fact that we do a similar kind of job, because what you want in a partner is someone who supports you and understands you. To go back to your washing machine of misery, I can't remember what it was called. Woes. I'm sorry. Washing machine of woes. If someone is struggling with what's going on in their brain and how they're processing things, and they feel their partner doesn't understand, that's really, really tough. We, at least, if someone came in and says, you know, I got a bad review, or my gig didn't go well, or no one would be dismissive of it, because we would understand that's everything to you, and there's no such thing as it's just a small gig, or just those people. Who cares about Cambridge? You care about everything all the time. The stakes are quite high, aren't they? Yeah. So at least having someone who understands that you aren't going to probably plan holidays, be at your sister's wedding, celebrate your anniversary, you're going to be working.
Do you think there is an overlap between comedy and being neurodivergent?
I think there's less masking, probably. The behaviours that maybe if you did work 9 to 5, you would have to hide more. People don't have to.
Yeah, I think we're just like very accepting of people. That's the way they are, kind of thing.
Yeah.
On and off stage, kind of thing.
Yeah, comics are allowed to be quite odd.
Yeah,
aren't they?
Yeah,
sort of answer to no one. And also, you can find people to do the organisation part of your life. People will have, you know, agents and PAs to an extent, and so basically you outsource the adulting. Someone buys your train ticket, someone checks you're going to be there.
Oh, yeah.
Someone double checks when you should be leaving. I mean, people can have all of that structure around them.
Oh, yeah. And even like management, so send you down the breakdown, and they have accountants and lawyers in thetheir agencies.
And they do your diary. Yeah. I mean, you don't.
Book planes and all that kind of stuff for festival. Yeah, it's so great. It is though. Like to know, get an email like, hey, your car picks you up at this time, we go to set, you get home at this time. And just getting, I think that's why I like, when I get to film shows and stuff, it reminds me of going to school, because it's such an organised, so tight in terms of you don't want to waste anyone's time or money kind of thing. And I just get excited. Even like early mornings, I don't mind them, because it's like very regimented. I know what time I'm getting picked up, and I know what time I'm getting home, and what I have to do for the next day kind of thing.
Yeah, so I don't like that. I think the reason I'm a comic is because I can't work with other people. And I like being a one-man band, doing everything myself.
What is it about working with other people that you can't do?
It's very hard. Compromising, actually. I think compromising is really hard.
Attention, like you like that kind of vibe in terms of like the attention. Would you not want to share it?
I'm trying to think now. Maybe it's just that I've done it for so long. I've been strengthening. I've been reinforcing, and so now then it suddenly feels like work to consider someone else. I don't even have support on tour, and some people, because the idea of traveling with someone and having to talk to them feels exhausting.
I think you should do like a tight 10 of the army major in your head coming out before.
Yeah.
From your experience on this is a bit of a heavy question. From your experience on the comedy circuit, do you think being a comedian goes hand in hand with trauma and or depression?
I think comedians like to think that, because we think we're fascinating. But I think we talk probably, we always have a microphone near our face, so we get to talk a lot about those things. But I actually think it's probably exactly the same percentage as the rest of the population. Yeah. But no one's in Sainsbury's asking everyone about their childhood and their trauma. Because whenever I'll hear someone going like, "Oh, comedians, they've always got one parent dead," or this, that, and the other, and there's always a theory, and you go, "That's a very universal thing in the world," or tears of a clown. It's like, no, you're just surprised they're sad. Everyone's sad.
Yeah. But I think it's the biggest question you get as well. Like, I didn't know there was, like, this person present themselves like this on stage kind of thing. It's like, that'd be exhausting to be like that all the time kind of thing. Yeah.
We had the brilliant Paul Whitehouse on a couple of weeks ago, and he said that a lot of people in the comedy scene are waving the ADHD flag.
Yeah.
Do you think a lot of people are waving the ADHD flag in the comedy scene?
What did he mean? What did he think the ADHD flag was?
As in like proud to be, or like just...
Yeah,
there's
he
more
said he
people,
went to a gig and the 3 of the 5 acts came out and their opening line was essentially, I have ADHD.
Oh, there's lots of
comics are coming
lots of
out.
jokes. Well, it's actually not comics, it's women. In my experience, the people I've seen doing that are women because women haven't been diagnosed. There's been a real, there's been a boom in people talking about girls masking ADHD as teenagers or children. And so, yeah, there are a lot. But also it's a very, very funny... ADHD is very funny. It's very easy to joke about, is what I would say, is a pushback. And
But also I think it's so more prevalent now and there's more people talking about it. So obviously in comedy we're going to dance on hot topics kind of thing.
But I would say the gigs I've done recently, 50% of the bill's got some ADHD stuff, which usually starts with saying, I've got ADHD stuff. I mean, it's... Sorry, Paul Whitehouse.
You do stuff about me, right? You did the red towel stuff. You did some stuff.
Yeah,
like that?
I don't say you've got ADHD though.
Oh, thanks, man.
I just blame it. I mean, just say don't pick up your towels.
Is there anything in your early years, Sarah, that with a knowledge about brains working in different ways makes sense after being confused for all this time?
Actually, I think, I don't think there's anything that makes sense. I actually think what I've got, or what has made my life harder, was having 2 children while working full-time as a self-employed person, married to someone with ADHD who's also working. And we don't sleep. Our kids don't sleep, so we get fractured, an hour at a time. And we have had that for 2.5 years. So I think I'm now much more confused than I was before. Everything in my brain has changed. So I think it's highlighted lots of things. Whereas if you'd asked me 3 or 4 years ago, I'd have said, this is all functioning like a well-oiled machine.
This has been fascinating. We've got a closing tradition on the podcast where we ask all the guests.
I've learned to dance, so come on, guys.
You've learned to dance.
I thought that was...
Steen likes to dance.
I thought doing a little bit
Stage
of
is yours.
You shouldn't make jokes if you're now going to have to dance us out of a podcast.
It'll be a first, but if you want to do
Wow,
it,
what a backflip.
we ask all the guests what their most impulsive thing you've ever done is. And I guess I'll ask Steen first.
I don't know.
I think we're going to be boringly non-impulsive now. Our impulsivenesses would be very small, wouldn't they? We wouldn't be impressively impulsive.
Oh, can I say one of the coolest, most impulsive things that Sarah ever did?
By the dog?
Oh, that was crazy. I went back, I opened for Conan O'Brien in Sydney for I flew home.
It's better to be relevant to the story and not just a name drop.
No, but for 4 days. And I flew home, I flew back, I was exhausted, I had jet lag. And Sarah's like, hey, I'm going to come meet you at Barron's, at the airport. I'm like, cool, I'm tired. And then we got to the airport, she wasn't there. She's like, actually, I'm going to jump on the train at Barron's Court. And then she did. And then she just went surprised and handed me an 8-week-old puppy. We didn't talk about getting a puppy.
He actually told me not to.
I told you not to get a puppy because we both had crazy work schedules kind of thing. And we have a beautiful dog now. But at the time, I was like, oh, why? And we just moved into
that was very impulsive.
But the one
I did want a dog, though.
The one I was going to say is we had tickets to see Hannah Gadsby's Nanette at Soho Theatre.
Yeah.
And I was waiting at Soho Theatre for Sarah to come. And she went, hey, we could go to Hannah Gadsby tonight, but I got 2 tickets to Craig David at Brixton Academy.
That was impulsive.
That was so impulsive.
So what had happened was we'd gone to we'd gone to something else at Brixton Academy. This is when we were dating and still went out sometimes. And Steen had asked a security guard, "What's the best
I said,
show?"
how long have you been working here for? He's like 10 years or something.
Yeah, 30 years. And then he said, Steen asked
what's
him,
the best gig you've ever been to? Or what's the best gig you've ever seen? He went, Craig David 3 weeks ago. I'm like, sick.
He
said
he'd never seen an audience react like that, have the most fun. So I searched to see when he was on again, and it was on that night. And that was impulsive.
Mate, it was amazing. And Craig David,
let's hope Hannah Gadsby never finds out.
But we still went and saw a show.
We went to see it a different time.
Night.
Yes, and I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't like, now we don't.
But I get the hype. Craig David, this is how he does. It was it was fantastic. No, but it was just in terms of so surprising and like, oh, should we do it?
That is the kind of things I do. But the things, but then there's also, I do impulsive things. Harriad was talking to me about ADHD and how difficult it is. She doesn't like musical concerts. I don't like music concerts. I like one song at a time. Apparently it's very common with ADHD people. But I've never seen the second half of a play because they're so boring. And even really amazing plays, and I know that they're well written, I'd rather read them in my own time. I cannot sit in the theatre. It's unbearable.
Very relatable for me personally.
Yes, yeah.
I go to the theatre so excited. And come the interval,
exactly, and by the interval, it's like I would rather we have to go and do something else. Or just sit and have a drink and be free because it's so hard not to shout out.
I think. Sorry. No, I just remembered like in terms of when I flew home to surprise my family for Christmas.
Yeah.
There was a thing of I think I just finished a job, but I couldn't go from a contract thing. I couldn't go, and then they're like, you can go if you want, and then I was like, I can't go, and so it was like, why not? Why don't you just fly home and see your family? And it's just this thing of
But
like,
these are nice
can
things.
I do that? No, but it's still a thing of I don't think I'd actively do that without encouragement
But
kind of thing.
impulse-wise, the problem I've had is I've lost a lot of money online
Oh yeah.
buying things, and then I've sent Deliveroos to addresses I don't live at, just not checking properly, not reading things properly.
Also, you hate returning stuff, so you just go, I bought it. Doesn't work.
I give it to a charity shop.
Yeah.
And the
they're
charity
good
shop
stuff.
is not far from the post office. I could have just extended that journey, but I can't do it.
No.
So you actually process the returns, you just don't return them
No,
back?
because
No,
that's
not
what
even
I
that.
consider not worth. If I was going to pay myself a wage to go on a computer, process a return, sellotape a package together, walk to the post office, I go,
Yeah.
by then I've costed this, and I can't do it. One day I'll get another dog.
I'm sure you have. I'm sure you have somewhere in the house.
This has been fascinating. Thank you so much.
Thank you for
thank
having
you.
us. Thank you for
Thank
having
you.
us.